So, Elysium, we find ourselves in the middle of this rather interesting night. Um, Throughout the night, various members of Clan Mekhet would have been approached by Mason Cassidy, Esther at some points, I imagine, trying to gather the clan together after their Priscus's public flogging to discuss, and they've been directed to a conference room somewhere fairly private where they can talk about the situation. So yeah. So yeah, no, Mason would be in there waiting for people to arrive after having gone to gather people.
Yeah, they would filter in. I think the last person to arrive would probably be Erasmus, who makes their way in after everybody else has already entered and shuts the door. And there's a brief moment where everybody in the room just sits back and looks, and so many people, their eyes flash as they make sure that they're not being observed by anyone intangible. Thankfully, that doesn't seem to be the case, as nobody immediately points at a figment, and Bob doesn't immediately break anyone's neck. So they sit around in the parlor room. This is the same room where you had that chat with Bart once. Bookcases over along one side and a few tables set about, to which the different members of different Mekhet families and covenants are split up and separated around.
So thank you all for coming fairly quickly. I feel like it's given what happened to Councillor Reed, I feel like we need to discuss what happened and where that leaves us as our representative on the council and in the eyes of the court. It doesn't look good on us.
I think that's quite an understatement. Richard says, toying with some books from the bookshelves, inspecting the covers.
I'm sorry, did you say something, Alex?
Yes, Gerjo piped up at the exact same time, awkwardly, as them.
Saying the opposite thing. And yeah, Richard would gesture to Gerjo to go again first.
Why would it reflect poorly upon us? Are we the Diablerists?
No, but it was an election. The clan voted him in, and you heard him while Vlatsky was hitting him. He said that we knew who we voted for. I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, it doesn't look good.
You didn't vote for him.
No, I didn't, but the majority did. That's how a democratic vote works.
Well, I, for one, agree with Mason. Esther explains where she's perched on the table. We need to think very critically about, well, look at it this way. All of Isaac's plans are going to be, altered a little now, since he's unlikely to command the same sorts of respect from the people we need, who want to be able to get us results or answers. I think it's worth taking a very close look at him in his absence, giving him no option to defend himself. Is that democratic, Mr. Cassidy?
I approached Isaac about this before he left Elysium. I said that I was gathering the clan, and he decided to leave anyway.
As admissions go, his comments earlier were rather clear, somewhat damning, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, unfortunately, they are. So I'd like to put it to the clan as to where we go from here. What do we do about this? Erasmus, as the whip, you must have an idea.
broad question. I didn't know that Isaac was a cannibal. If I did, then I would have mentioned it, spoke out a bit louder against it, informed the prince. How many of us knew that he was when we voted for him?
Or not all of us were present to vote.
That is a very good point. He's a leader that's been elected to speak for a body that didn't entirely represent themselves. That's certainly true. I didn't get the chance either. But then, is Her Majesty going to allow us to change our mind? She didn't remove him from the position even after his ordeal, which would have been the perfect time to do it after all. So I'm quite surprised actually that he's even still here. Maybe her silence on the matter implies some action on our part. Maybe it implies she doesn't want it, anything of the sort.
I think you make a very good point, Esther, and I'm not sure whether Her Majesty will allow us to change our minds, but either way, I think a statement by the clan wouldn't be a bad idea. To, at least saying that we don't agree with that, even though we voted him in. Saying nothing, silence could be just as damning on our part.
Well, for my 2 cents, this is Erasmus speaking again. If we're going to put someone else in his place, we need to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. We need somebody who, well, saying someone we can trust, that goes without saying, but we need somebody who's got a clean record in the city, who's done work for the city, who the prince would see as a clear successor to Isaac. Now, as his whip, I feel naturally that should fall to me. I know she wouldn't like seeing another Carthian on the council, but I mean, who in this room can really say that that's a bad thing? Well, Percy, who hasn't really spoken up much, who's leaning against the door. Well, when she gets scared, well, she can enforce some pretty draconian principles. So I wouldn't get so cocky about that if I were you. Right. Sorry, you are? Percival Busk. Now most of you are, well, you're whippersnappers compared to the knights I remember. So maybe you don't remember what she's like when she feels like she's losing control. Some of you, I think we know perfectly well, Percival. All I'm saying is, don't get cocky, Erasmus. Another Carthian right now might be what buries the clan instead of what digs it out. There's my 2 cents. And he leans back again and folds his arms, and he's got a smug grin on his face. Well, either way, if we're going to change our minds, then we need a strong candidate that the prince is going to permit. And I'm putting myself forward. And I'd be happy to convey this news to Her Majesty myself, on behalf of everyone. Gertrude leans back and his chair creaks, but he doesn't say anything.
Does anyone dispute that? Dispute Erasmus's claim?
Gertrude's hand goes up. And he stands up. Increasingly, it has become unpopular to listen to the wisdom of one's elders. We have a reputation, I think, for arrogance, for perfectionism. I can assure you all that is not because we are perfect. That is because we have made the same mistakes as young Isaac and even you, Erasmus, will make. Mistakes born not of any failure or talent, but merely inexperience. I led my clan for decades before my child took the post. I am fully qualified to do it again, and I would happily relinquish my position as the primogenitor of the Ordo in order to do it. And if there are any who truly doubt my years of experience, I welcome you to speak. He looks directly at Esther when he says that, like unashamedly and unabashedly. She squirms, but doesn't respond to him immediately.
So, the choice, it would seem, is between Erasmus or Master Serrani. Would anyone else like to put themselves forward?
From his position behind Gerjo, Richard would have stood poised on the last book that he took off the bookshelf, staring clearly not at the cover of the book, but in the same general direction, in thought while Gerjo spoke. Shaking his head, visibly reluctant, he placed the book back and looked at the room as a whole. Not one for that sort of political office, but I'd like to suggest perhaps that our clan has had plenty of age and experience, and whatever Bart's many positive qualities, age and experience has not left us in a good state. Perhaps some newer blood.
Gerjo cranes his neck over towards you. You can almost hear like a rusty pipe. is nearly audible in the room as he turns his gaze from Esther to his other child.
Richard doesn't or can't meet his gaze.
So, you think some new blood would be a better option, Richard?
Still uncomfortable looking down and away from his sire. Perhaps simply to dig our way out of quandaries we find ourselves in.
Gerjo starts walking towards Richard very deliberately and stands over him and looks down.
Hearing the footsteps, Richard turns and looks up.
Erasmus, how many conversations have you had with Her Majesty? Oh, I get it. How many exactly? I couldn't say, but I've been in her presence. You have spoken to her 4 times. One of them was when you were presented first. The second was when you were released. The other times were merely to pay tribute as an Archon, when you only reported to who we now know was a possessed sheriff, and the final time was when you begged, and it was begging, for the domain of Police Plaza. These are hardly the sort of conversations we can expect you to have as Priscus. I, on the other hand, have advised Her Majesty on countless issues regarding the clan and regarding the city since before many of your grandparents were born. And that is a considerable amount of leverage I could apply for our benefit. Not to mention, unlike you, I hold no particular enmity towards Isaac Reed, even though he is what he is. The rules which he has, in Valetsky's mind, broken were some of the ones that I have helped write. And so I would actually quite enjoy to continue working with him as an advisory member of this clan, at least until he can find other suitable employment elsewhere. I'm certain that he's fallen far. What would you do with Isaac Reed, Erasmus? You seem disgusted by him. Well, of course I'm disgusted by him. He's committed the worst crime that we could commit. And the fact you excuse it so easily and are willing to welcome him back that's, to be honest, that's a little worrying. There are worse things, Erasmus, believe me. When you've lived a little longer, you'll see them, and it will put everything into perspective. Isaac Reed has done more to combat these Strix and more for this clan in the past 50 years, comparatively. He's done more this year for both of those issues than a great many of us have in our entire life. That cannot be discounted simply because he is a heinous person. I am a heinous person. And yet the good that I have done for the city is difficult to measure. It's difficult to measure because no one fucking sees it. There's no need for that sort of language, Erasmus. And he's starting to stare directly at the neonate. Well, look, we can listen to your archaic prattle as long as we want, but Richard's right. We need something fresh, something new. We've tried something fresh, something new. Both times it's failed. I am the only rational suggestion, and I might remind all of you that this little experiment in democracy, should the Prince decide to entertain it again, will not change fact that I have her ear, and she will always listen to me. You may elect to do as you wish. I will bring the matter up before Her Majesty if you, Erasmus, as whip, do not get the chance to before the end of Elysium. Good evening. Richard, would you walk with me?
Why, yes, of course, says, placing the last book he picked up down on a side table as he steps out.
And he stares at Mason for a minute before walking out. Arvel, you've been quiet.
Much to say.
You voted for Reed last time.
Yep.
Would you again?
Maybe. But I find it hard to believe that you didn't know. We're a clan full of psychics, mind readers. Everybody in this room who was there knew exactly what Reed had done.
Hey, I heard the rumors, but that's what I thought they were. I was actually willing to put a little trust in our leader. Okay, well, what am I going to tell her, if anything?
Well, she hasn't officially taken away his position. I don't think there's much you can do.
Well, Gojo's going to go ask for it himself, and I don't know, maybe she will just pick him again. He's a conservative choice, and we're in a crisis. Unless, of course, nobody in this room is ever going to listen to him.
I mean,
Bon would look up from picking his nails, sitting on one of the tables towards the back. Cut from the same cloth. Of course, he defends Reed.
Well, then, who would back me? If I asked to succeed Reed, who would actually step forward and say, yes, I'd support Erasmus? Esther very tentatively raises her hands while looking around the room.
I would.
The twins look at each other, nod, and both raise a hand.
Arvel, for lack of a better option, yeah.
I'm sorry. Tessa, now, I gotta say something. I know Gojo's weird, but come on, really? You know she's not gonna take any shit from a Carthian, is she? You know that, right? If you put
Well, then
Erasmus
she
in,
can elect a Priscus that no one will listen to.
well, that's up to you if you don't want to listen to him. He's got a lot to say. And I know he can come across as a little bit crass, but no one gets any brownie points for being polite. I'm sorry, Erasmus, but no. Okay.
It's certainly a difficult gambit. I mean, going from Isaac to a Carthian, I'm not sure if the prince will go for it, but if the clan, if we at least seem united under something that's not Isaac.
Assuming she decides to replace Reed at all.
She may not, and this may all be for nothing other than an image to the court.
Well,
but it's better than nothing.
I'd much rather stage a protest than just watch shit like this happen.
If we do nothing, and if we just let this slide, then it looks even worse on us. And I can't let this slide.
You say he's already left? Can you call him? Oh hell, I'll call him. And Erasmus pulls their phone out. All right, well, I'm gonna see if I can sort this out. Get Reed's take on me succeeding him, and then, I mean, if we got his blessing, it'll make this whole process a lot easier, right? I'll bring this up before the prince when the time's right. Tonight.
If you need any support there, just let us know.
Well, you put your hand up. Thank you, everyone. Erasmus puts their phone back in their pocket and walks outside to get some privacy.
Well, maybe eventually this clan will stop being a shit show.
Yeah, we just need to start. All right, I've said enough, but seriously, she respects age. If we don't elect age, she won't respect them, and she won't respect us.
What respect? Says Fear.
Huh?
What respect do we have?
Well, at least she liked Barn.
He was nice.
She liked...
A lot of people want him back. He's gone.
You know, Erasmus is just another stepping stone for her. There's nothing more to her than just a hurdle to jump over.
Who's more like Bart?
Honestly, is Dad. Tessa stands up at that point. You didn't know
Fear
like
just
I
lets out a snort.
You want
Mason,
respect
how
as a
long?
clan? It's not going to happen.
Mason, how long did you know my side?
Not as long as you.
What was the worst thing you ever saw him do?
Raise his voice.
Then you don't really know him. And she makes her way out, Muradov follows her as well. Oh God, I'm starting to wonder if I should just declare myself an outcast now and make my way off. What do you think, Percy? And she looks up, and Percy, who was lost in thought for a moment. What? Oh, I feel the temptation, yes. But well, we all need representation. Otherwise, we're just left to the sharks. Where are the sharks exactly? Well, we've all got them. They don't all look the same, but we've all got them. He looks over at Erasmus again. He walks over to him. I'm sorry, kid, but I just came back here. I don't know you well. I don't know you well enough. Well, if you give me a chance. Oh, well, I could give you a chance, but I don't know what horse I'm betting on. So he taps him on the shoulder. Best of luck. Looking forward to see you in office if it happens. And he turns around and walks off. What a bizarre man.
Eccentric.
Oh, Erasmus has already left. I only just remembered that. Before this scene breaks down any further because of Alex aneurysms, then Esther stands up and walks over to Mason. Let's just do our best.
Can do. And he kind of sighs and heads towards the door. If there's anything else that's happening, then that's where we end the scene.